Hello, my name is Carlos Rivera, and as part of my microeconomics communication project, we're going to be talking about the BRRRR strategy for real estate investment. BRRRR, that's B with four R's, is one of the most popular real estate investment strategies going on right now for very good reasons. Let's dive right into it. So, I have a basic question to ask you before we get started. Is debt good or bad? You've been told most of your life, if you're like most people, debt is bad, stay out of debt. So is that true? Debt is neither. It's a tool. Like a hammer, it can either help you build your house or it can break everything around you. So it's neither good nor bad. It is a tool to be used. It's a key tool for the BRRRR strategy. With BRRRR, we're going to learn how to do what's called leveraging. We're going to leverage debt to create wealth. And what do I mean by leveraging? Well, if you think about mechanically, leveraging means to use force and effects to produce a more than normal result from a given action. In other words, it will give you an advantage by using a lever. For example, using a jack to lift a car, that's a lever. Financially speaking, leveraging is the use of fixed costs, aka debt, to magnify the potential return. And we're talking about fixed costs, we're talking about basically two types. We're talking about operating costs, which is going to be, rent, salaries, etc. And we're also going to be talking about that interest from debt. So again, let's think about it mechanically, right? Here we have a picture of a 25-kilogram briefcase, and it's being lifted by a much lighter 10-kilogram, looks like dumbbell or kettlebell. And the reason why it's able to be lifted is because leveraging allows you to receive greater results with less effort. So you don't have to overpower, if we're talking about mechanically, you don't have to overpower this great weight of the 25 kilograms as long as you use the proper tools, a leverage, a fulcrum. So in life, you can work hard to get ahead, and most people do. We work hard, we work towards a retirement, and then we might find an opportunity. Something might come our way to where we can get a little bit ahead in life. And then once we use that opportunity to build and to get other opportunities, that's when we really see life-changing transformation, financially speaking. In real estate, we will leverage money to gain wealth through real estate. So how do we do that? What is the BRRRR strategy? Well, BRRRR is B with four R's. The first B stands for buy. It's where you buy a property, preferably one that needs work and therefore is priced under market value. Now, how you go about buying that property, it doesn't really matter whether you finance this property or you buy it cash. Of course, cash would be better. Step two would be that you rehab this property. In other words, you bought it at a discount because it needs some work. Step two is you do that work. Might need some new kitchens, a new roof, whatever the case may be. And now that you rehab it, you're thinking, oh, that's when he says he's going to flip it for profit. You're wrong. You rent it out. You keep this property. You do not sell that property. You rent out the property, and now you're earning a monthly income. Now that you are earning this monthly income and you've done this work, that house is valued at much higher than the combination of what you purchased it for and what you put into it for the rehab. So what do? You refinance this property through a lender at a higher valuation than what you bought it for and what you paid for to fix it up. The last step is you do it over and over and over and over again until infinity. So let's talk about the first step. buying. So you find a property, and the best way to do this would be through a real estate agent. They know the ins and outs. I'm a real estate agent myself, so I have access to tools like the MLS. But there's other strategies too. You may be, talking to a wholesaler, which is a person who buys and he arranges the sale basically between a cash buyer and another purchaser. There's social media sites that are specifically for investors. If you're talking about Facebook, for example, kids, I know who uses Facebook anymore, right? Just us old people. Well, us old people and those who want to make money, because that's where the majority of investors hang out. So there's a lot of BRRRR strategy sites. There's a lot of real estate investor sites, such as Bigger Pockets. There's a lot of wholesaler sites on there. Ways to find deals. The best deals I've found, honestly, they're on social media. You can also be put on mailing lists. You can be put on email lists from different wholesalers. Point is, you find the property. The next is you purchase the property. If you're using a loan, that's not step two, and we'll talk about that later. If you're using cash, okay, now we're talking that could be step two. You purchase the property. There's lots of different financing that's available if you're going to use financing. There's conventional loans, there's FHA regular loans, there's FHA 203K loans, which is a government-backed FHA loan that's designed for fixing up properties. In other words, they know that it's not going to pass inspection right now. They expect that, and they finance the rehab of the property as well. Hard money lenders, which is private money lenders as well. We can get into those strategies as well, but hard money lender basically is not a traditional bank. It's not a traditional credit union. It's an individual or an institution that will lend out money at higher interest rates for short-term loans. And that is very much preferred for those that are interested in this strategy or flipping houses. But again, if you have the cash and you've managed to save up some cash, or you are investing with partners, cash is always the easiest. Now, very important, and I touched on it earlier, if you are purchasing with a loan, getting pre-approved for that loan is always step number one. And that's for if you're going to purchase a private residence as well. If you're going to purchase a home for yourself instead of for an investment, getting pre-approved is the first step, because the market's hot. By the time you find a house and then you decide to get pre-approved, the house is gone. So pre-approval first. Those pre-approvals usually last about 3 months or so and can be renewed very easily. But if you're pre-approved, then you're ready to submit an offer as soon as you do find a house. Step two, rehabbing that property. And that's about what you see. You see a lot of shows on television where they do this in a half hour and they're done and they sold it at the end of the half hour. It's not quite that easy, but the principle still applies. The work needed can also be financed through various loans. And we talked about earlier, hard money loans that can be used for purchasing. Hard money loans can also be used for financing the repairs. FHA loans, 203K, personal loans to your bank, HELOC, which stands for Home Equity Line of Credit. That means that if you already own a property and you have a gap between what you currently owe and the property's worth, meaning that it's worth a lot more than what you currently owe, you can take a loan based on that gap. You can hire a contractor to complete the work, or if you're pretty handy, you can attempt to do it yourself. So what's the pros and cons? If you hire a contractor, it's additional upfront costs. They can be expensive, but the work will most likely, if you hire the correct contractor, be done correctly and be done on time. And much more importantly, it frees your time to go find and search for more properties and do whatever else you do. Maybe you still keep your 9 to 5. But the point being is that you hire experts to do the job. If you do the work yourself, you're going to wish you ended up hiring a contractor. Just plain don't do it. Take it from experience. I've tried this. Several other people have tried it. And we always regret it because it always takes much longer. We always end up having more costs to hold the property. Just hire the contractor from the start. Now that you've fixed this property up, it's ready to be inhabited. So what do? You find yourself a renter. You want to make sure that you're renting it for the right amount. So you check the surrounding areas through hopefully a real estate agent or somebody that's experienced to see what the proper rent is for that property. You can advertise it again on social media. You can advertise it on sites like realtor.com and Zillow. Once you find that tenant, or once you're ready for it to be advertised, actually, you'll have an attorney prepare a lease for you. If you're using a real estate agent, they can use an attorney they know. There's leases on the MLS that we use. I don't recommend those. They're actually, there's a lot of holes in those leases. The ones that are done by attorneys are probably going to be a lot better. You start collecting this rent. You're earning an income. You're earning a pretty good income, actually, and it's passive income, meaning that you're not actively working for that money. That money's now working for you. And you do have to be wise with that money. It's not like you can pocket 100% of the rent. You still have to set aside for things like repairs, times that the place is going to be vacant. You have to plan for taxes and other expenses. You're eventually going to need a roof. Now, we refinance this property once we have a renter in it. Cash out refinance through a trusted lender based on the new higher valuation. And we'll go through an example of this in just a minute. But basically, you paid one amount, you paid a little more to have that place nice and fixed up. You have a renter in there now. Now you get that, you cash out refinance. Now liquid cash in your pocket again. Most lenders will give you about 75% loan to value, which we use the acronym or the initials LTV. So that means that you have to structure your deals accordingly. There's a lot of math in this. So you do have to make sure that you don't just purchase any property. You have to make sure that you plan accordingly, that the numbers are going to work for you, that the refinance numbers are going to work for you, these repair numbers are going to work for you. There's a lot of due diligence that's been being done here. And yes, after you refinance, you're now going to have a loan or another loan that lessens your cash flow per month. But guess what you've done? If you've structured this deal correctly, you have paid yourself back all of the money you spent into it. That's your purchase, that's your rehab, that's your advertising. You've put all that cash back in your pocket. And if you did it right, you can possibly get more than what you put out. So the last step is that you repeat this process. Now that you have all the cash back in your pocket, what are you going to do with that cash? You're going to do it again. And what are you going to do after that? You're going to do it again. And you're going to keep repeating this process over and over and over again until infinity. So let's talk about the math for a second. I'll give you just a general example. I'm going to be leaving out a bunch of information like closing costs and all of these things. This is just for ease of understanding given the time constraint that we have. So again, I told you at the beginning, you can purchase this property with loans or with cash. It's not going to make a huge difference to you. But just for ease of explanation, in this particular example, we're going to pretend that we're buying a property with cash. You've either saved up some money, you got a rich daddy, you won the lottery, whatever the case may be, you have, let's say, about $120,000 burning a hole in your pocket. Yeah, some of you may laugh at this, but this is just for ease of understanding. It could be a lot less, it could be a lot more. We're just going to use simple math for this part. So let's say we purchase a property for $100,000. Now, this property is a bit run down. So remember, that's buy, that's the B. The first R is your rehab. So let's say that you spend around $20,000 on this rehab. So now you're all in for $120,000. You've purchased it and your rehab, it's ready to go. You're ready to find a renter. But because you did this rehab, because you spent this $20,000 on the rehab, you now gained more worth than you spent. That property is now going to be worth about $160,000 in our hypothetical example. Purchased it for 100, you spent 20 fixing it up, but it's now worth 160. And yes, this is very easy actual situations to do. So You rent it out for $1,500, give or take. Let's say maybe it's a little more, maybe it's a little less. In our example, you're going to be renting this place out for $1,500 and you're generating a passive income. You're sitting at the beach, and on the first of the month, you get a notification on your phone that your renter has made the payment and that payment has hit your bank account, and you take another sip of your drink as you watch the sun go down and you enjoy another easy day, right? God, I wish it was all that was involved. But it's in our hypothetical scenario, you're generating passive income. Part two of this math. Now that you have this renter in there, you're going to refinance at the higher valuation of $160,000. The bank is going to send, the bank of your choosing is going to send a real estate appraiser out there, and hopefully that real estate appraiser says it's going to be worth $160,000 or more. The bank is going to give you, remember, we said 75% loan to value. So 160,000, 75% of 160,000 is 120,000. That 120 sounds familiar, right? That's because that was the amount that you paid, the combination of purchasing this property and that rehab. 75%, 160,000, $120,000 check back in your pocket. You have now recovered all of the money that you spent. Monthly payment on that loan, what we call PITI, which is principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. In other words, that's your mortgage payment every month. We estimate that to be about $850 on that amount, on that loan. $1,500 minus $850, $1,500 of that rent that you were making minus $850 of that monthly loan that you have to pay back equals $650 that you get to keep as cash flow in your pocket. Now, again, this is for simplicity of explanation. There's other costs associated you're going to want to plan for, and some of which we talked about already. But for ease of explanation, you're now earning a paycheck $650. The beautiful part of this, you've spent no money, because as we've said, you spent $120,000 and now you refinanced, you have $120,000 back in your pocket. You've spent $0 and you have a property that's hopefully increasing in value at the market, and you have a monthly income of $650. It's a beautiful thing. So you might heard of, people like Dave Ramsey, an investor. He preaches debt-free investing, and there's nothing at all wrong with that, but it doesn't leave much room for growth. So let's take an example of debt-free investing and compare that to leveraged investing. So in our debt-free, same example, we bought the same house. We were all in between purchase and repairs at $120,000. We rent that place out for $1,500 monthly, which equates to $18,000 a year. Our cash on cash return, which is a term you'll hear a lot in investing, is about 15% yearly if we purchased it in cash, meaning no loans. How much money out of pocket? Well, if you purchased it in cash, you spent about $120,000 in acquiring this property. If you took out a loan, because it's an investment loan, they require larger down payments, we're talking approximately $25,000 that you spent out of pocket. And out of that, you're making $1,500 a month. Cash on cash returns, pretty good still. Okay, now let's compare that to leveraged debt, like what we talked about with this particular BRRRR strategy. Again, we're all in, purchase and rehab, $120,000. Rent minus the loan, well, now we're only making $650 a month, which equates to $7,800 a year. Not bad. Doesn't sound as good though as $1,500 or $80,000 a year, but it still sounds pretty good, right? But because you've done this over and over and over again, right? Within a year, year and a half, 2 years, at the most, even the first year, it's possible. You've acquired 5 of these properties, let's say. So, and that's easy. I'm using a low number. There's people with hundreds of doors, thousands of properties. So times 5 would be $3,200 a month, $3,250 per month, which equates to $39,000 a year. That sounds a heck of a lot better than $1,500 a month and $18,000 a year. Cash on cash return, unlimited, as opposed to 15%, because we have no cash out in this particular scenario. We don't have any cash out. All of our cash is back in our pocket. Money out of our pocket, $0. Compare that to 120,000, or at least 25 if you're financing it. Money out of pocket, $0. This is beautiful. You see why I like this? So I know I've made this pretty simple. Did I leave anything out? Yeah, I left a lot out, some of which we talked about. Of course I left things out. It's a class presentation. It's not a seminar. There's things like holding costs, things that, interest on these payment, closing costs, points that you're going to prepay. There's repairs that you have to make. You have to plan for vacancies. You have to plan for paying taxes. There's all kinds of things, I left out. Surprises with the repairs, all of these things. I left it for simplicity purposes at what I left it at, because this, again, is time constraint for a class project. So it is not a seminar. I am not a guru. I'm just a guy taking a class like you, that's trying to help you out. It is a strategy that I've done. It's a strategy that many, many people have done, and it's worked out absolutely beautifully for us. I recommend it highly. There's other strategies out there we can go over. But if you're going to do this strategy or any real estate strategy, you do have to read a lot. What is considered the go-to reading for this particular strategy is called Burr. It's a book called Burr, which by Rehab, Rent, Refinance, and Repeat. It's by David Green. If you hear anybody talking about Burr, they've probably read this book over and over again. But again, it's not the only way to do it. You can join social media groups that we talked about. Finding a good mentor, sometimes on these social media groups. But a mentor would be an experienced investor that's done this. Regardless of whether you're doing it by yourself or with a mentor, you're going to want to do your due diligence before purchasing. That means that you want to research this property top to bottom. You want to make sure that it's ready to go, that there's no surprises with the title exchange, there's no surprises with the condition. And you definitely want to form a team. You want to establish relationships with lenders, with contractors, with title companies, lawyers, other investors. It involves some networking. And the last step, though, the most important step, you do have to pull that trigger. There's a phrase called paralysis by analysis, where typically first-time investors, and it was me too, and it's most people, you overanalyze, you get scared, and you never buy. Meanwhile, all these deals are passing you by. One of my favorite sayings in real estate investing, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. So I know you guys probably have questions. I'll be here to answer. Thank you. And I hope that I've inspired you all to at least research this particular strategy in real estate investing. But remember this, 9 out of 10 millionaires in this country are real estate investors. They're millionaires through real estate. So thank you for listening, and have a great day.